This thing was basically just a giant flying pancake. And so that's what they named it. In the 1940s, airplanes were still relatively new, and the necessity that came from war led to vast amounts of research and development in the realm of aeronautics. Much of this led to some of the most iconic aircraft of all time, the old World War II warbirds. But not every new airplane was a winner. At that point, we had tried a lot of things, but there were also a lot of things left to try. There was an aeronautical engineer named Charles Zimmermann who had an idea. Typically, an airplane has a fuselage seated between two wings. The wings produce lift, and the fuselage often is the largest source of drag. What if we could improve this design by incorporating the fuselage into the wing itself so the entire body of the aircraft is a lifting surface? What Zimmerman proposed was the idea of a flying wing aircraft, which now we have used in the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber and the B-2's successor, the B-21 Raider. But Zimmerman's idea looked a little bit different. According to Zimmerman's theory, a short, wide, almost circular wing would help generate high lift at low speeds, making the aircraft exceptionally maneuverable. And since most of the drag on a wing is generated by wingtip vortices, he placed the two propellers at the wingtips in order to reduce that drag, and also, in theory, improve near-stall performance. But Zimmerman didn't want big, clunky engines right at the wingtips, so he recessed them into the fuselage itself, connecting them to the props by drive shafts and gearboxes. The result was the V-173, basically a giant disc with two propellers that look far too big for it, and two rear stabilizers that make it look like an ocean sunfish. This thing was basically just a giant flying pancake. And so that's what they named it. Now, this wasn't just for kicks. Zimmerman did have a use case in mind. He wanted to create an STOL, a short takeoff and landing aircraft that could operate off of small carriers and engage conventional fighters with the benefit of high maneuverability at low speed. Now, all of this is great in theory, but was he actually right? Well, kinda. The Flying Pancake underwent a few test flights, and the first big issue was the vibrations from the gearbox. It was so bad that the test pilot didn't even feel comfortable taking it off the ground, so they fixed that issue and tried again. The next big problem was the low speed, high lift theory. Zimmerman's calculations weren't exactly correct, and the test pilot had a very hard time getting enough speed to maintain level flight. So they fixed that issue and they tried again. Charles Lindbergh, the first man to fly nonstop across the Atlantic Ocean, was one of these test pilots, and he noted that once the major issues had been fixed, it was extremely maneuverable even at low speeds, and he found it almost impossible to stall. Overall, the project proved the concept, and a fighter variant was built as well, the XF-5U Flying Flapjack, but the project never went anywhere because about that same time the Navy had begun testing with jet engines and helicopters, both of which performed better and were more versatile than either the Flying Pancake or the Flying Flapjack, so the project was cancelled. But the Flying Pancake did show that an all-wing aircraft was indeed possible, even if it wasn't the best option at the time. Now it's just another cool piece of American aviation history.